G'day guys, Solid here. Hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another episode of Adventure News where we talk the latest, the greatest and sometimes the hated adventure and dual sport stories. This month we got plenty to get through. We've got brand new pictures of the Ducati Desert X. I wanted to cover the Tenere 700 custom rally racer that I covered earlier in the month. We also have some news on Benelli's TRK 800 adventure bike. And lastly, I've been getting plenty of questions about how I think the motorcycle industry is going to fare in the current climate and moving forward. So let's get into all that right now. So the first bit of news for this month is that the Tenere 700 is getting some custom work done to it by two custom motorcycle manufacturers, and it's going to be released as a rally racer model in very, very small numbers. So they're going to be doing some changes to the chassis and the swing arm. They're adding carbon fiber bodywork to save weight, uprating suspension, bigger brakes, all that kind of stuff. Now that I think will really jack up the cost. This will be quite an expensive bike by the time it's finished, and I really wouldn't want to drop it with that carbon fiber bodywork. But I think Yamaha could take a lot of notes here in releasing a proper rally model rather than the European model that had a very nice color scheme but not much else. So I think it would be an easy win for Yamaha to just throw some better suspension, maybe upgrade the brakes and think about ways of trying to make the bike a little lighter and calling it the Rally. I think that would be a real winner by Yamaha. But I'd like to know what you guys think. I know a lot of you have said, well, the Tenere is really dirt capable straight out the box, but I always believe that a motorcycle can be improved. So let me know what you think down in the comment section. A couple of other little pieces of news for the US market. You are getting the Husqvarna long range edition of the 701. It's coming to America. And so is the BS6 version of the Royal Enfield Himalayan. So the one with switchable ABS and the new color schemes and the improved brakes. So that is good news for anyone that's either a Royal Enfield fan or a Husqvarna 701 Enduro fan over in the US. So next up, we have some news on Benelli's TRK 800 that will be coming out shortly, their big adventure bike that is heavily based on their current TRK 500 that you're very familiar with. Now, if you haven't been following Benelli over the years, they were an Italian brand, but as you know, they've got bought out by a Chinese firm and they're now made in China as well. So I don't know how I quite feel about Benelli. They have been making some really great small displacement models, particularly their scramblers. The Leoncino is very, very eye-catching, but I'm just kind of hesitant to recommend them as there really isn't much information out there as to the longevity and the quality of these bikes, given that they're currently made in China and people's feelings about that region of the world at the moment. So it is a bit of a contentious topic. So the images you are seeing are actually the Chinese version of the motorcycle that's made by the company that owns Benelli. So it's called the QJ SRB 750. Doesn't that just roll off the tongue? But the engine in this bike will be what is used in the Benelli, and basically the Benelli will be very similar except for bodywork. So we can get a pretty good idea from these very blurry images of what the Benelli is going to be all about. Now, my major concern other than quality control with these Benelli adventure bikes is obviously going to be the weight. Now, the TRK 500 is quite a pig for a small sized adventure bike. And the reason that is because when you're manufacturing a motorcycle and you're trying to save money so you can offer it at a lower price, as they need to do with these Chinese firms, often a way of saving money is by using heavier materials because they tend to be cheaper, because there's less technology required to make something heavy than there is to make something strong and light. So my worry here is this is going to be a giant pig, and if you drop it, you're probably going to crap your pants. But other than that, it doesn't look like too bad of a motorcycle. Maybe you're looking for a really great bang for buck adventure bike. This might be the option. So Triumph have just announced that they're working on a Trident motorcycle. They're very, very basic images, and they have said that in September they'll be releasing some more detailed images. If you're not familiar with the Trident name, it's been around for years. First came out in 1968, and basically the motorcycle is a 3-cylinder 4-stroke and has been predominantly a road bike. Now, they've said that this is going to be 660 cc's, so think of a learner budget version of the 675 street triple that Triumph currently make, except this is going to be more tailored to the learner market and going to be very, very affordable. Now, they said this is mostly going to be aimed at the markets where you have a graded licensing system. So here in Australia or the UK and Europe, where we have a learner market and an open class, but also so that it can be used in places like the American market, but just as a very budget orientated version of the triple motorcycles. Now, they're saying that they went with the triple because that's going to be the point of difference for selling this bike. At the moment, you can't really get a really good triple motor in a learner motorcycle. So that will be something that will be offered really for the first time in a long time and will really be a great point of difference and a very, very good marketing strategy if you ask me from Triumph. But you might be asking why the hell I'm talking about a road bike that's a prototype. Well, of course, my mind goes to, could this turn into a budget adventure bike from Triumph? Now, we've got the Tiger 900 Rally, and yes, it's a very nice bike, but it's also very, very expensive now. Gone are the days where you could expect to get a middleweight Triumph for a decent amount of money. They've got very, very expensive. That was a big shock to me when I went and test rode the latest version, is just how pricey they got here in Australia. So my idea is that I think they would really, really do well to take this Trident triple motor and chuck it in an adventure motorcycle frame and give a better entry point to those who are more budget orientated but still want that triple in an adventure bike. So I think that would be a fantastic idea. I might be in the minority. Let me know if I lost my mind down below. So next up we have Ducati's Desert X. This was a bike that got chins wagging quite a lot at the last motorcycle show late last year. And it was a bike I put in the category of the manufacturer releasing it with no intention to actually bring this into production. It was just purely there to gain attention for the manufacturer. But over the months, it looks like Ducati are actually considering putting this into production. There's no official announcement, but back in May, they released images, which I'm going to throw up now. I didn't cover it because it wasn't the hugest of stories, but again this week, Ducati have released another image up on Instagram of the Desert X, which has got me thinking that maybe Ducati are considering putting this bike into production. They're throwing out pictures and testing the audience reaction and seeing whether there is long-term interest in this model. So it does give me a little bit of hope that maybe we might see a Desert X in the future. It does look very interesting. When it first came out, I wasn't sure about it, but the longer I look at it, the more I like it. It definitely is a fresh design. We don't see anything that looks quite like it on the market at the moment, and that's something that always gets me excited. I like seeing different things. I like seeing manufacturers taking a risk. I think more and more as the years have gone on, all these manufacturers have really become risk averse, and we really do see a watering down of fresh ideas in the market. So I like it when manufacturers step outside the box a little bit. Sure, the Desert X isn't a big departure from the current retro classic adventure format, but things are just a little bit different. So any kind of difference is great in my opinion, but let me know what you think down below. Do you love these retro classic adventure bikes and you don't mind taking them off-road, or are you like me and you're petrified of ruining the expensive shiny machine and you feel much more comfortable ruining your ugly crappy dual sport? So I've been getting a few questions as to how I think the motorcycle industry is going to be doing in the short term and in the long term moving forward. So how do I think all of this is going to play out? Well, I think we're in the eye of the storm. That's the best way I can describe it. We haven't seen the major impacts of things like job losses, supply chains, continued lockdowns. We really don't have any clear picture as to how to move forward. So the industry is kind of treading water at the moment and waiting to see what happens. Some sales are up, some sales are down. Now, it's very hard to get an idea and a clear view of the data, as the motorcycle industry is very, very good at trying to make things look more rosy than they actually are. So you'll see reports of off-road motorcycles doing very well, and that is true. ATVs, dual sports, and to some degree adventure bikes are doing very, very well. And we're also seeing that in the car industry, where four-wheel drives, SUVs, they're also doing very well, at least here in the Australian market. There are signs that the off-road industry is doing well, which was kind of unexpected but positive to see. But overall, the motorcycle industry is actually hurting a bit. Now, this is a symptom not only of the immediate effects of the health crisis, but this is actually a long story format. Now, the economy has been in trouble long before this health crisis. So the motorcycle industry was actually slowing down quite a bit in 2019. Sales figures really weren't that great. And I think it's kind of a problem because we're always looking for more and more growth, and that's not really a good perspective to have. You can't exponentially grow without some contraction and rethinking your approach and building that growth again. You can never expect to have year after year of just exponential growth and nothing to ever go wrong. And that's the kind of market we've been in. So it'll be interesting to see how manufacturers cope here. I think some will do really well. They've got great business plans. Their heads are screwed on tight and they know what they're doing. And other manufacturers have kind of relied on brand recognition. They haven't really put the effort into keeping ahead of the curve with development, and they haven't stayed in touch with what their buyers want out of them as a manufacturer. So I think the next few years are really going to weed out the weak manufacturers, and the strong manufacturers are going to remain and keep moving forward. I am a little worried that with the lack of liquidity, the velocity of money, and the ease of getting money, we might see less and less risk taking. So we won't see so many really interesting concepts and ideas from the major manufacturers, which, let's admit it, was already a problem to start with. These big manufacturers are getting more and more scared of taking risk. So I think we'll see a focus on more budget-friendly motorcycles, ones that don't take too much risk. So the small adventure bike segment you've seen really heat up. And I think that's because the manufacturers don't have to take much risk. They are a bike that they can sell anywhere in the world, and they're very popular. They're easy to manufacture. They're cheap to manufacture. So I think that's where we'll start to see focus. Less risk taking, less focus on these big, very expensive motorcycles that cost as much as a car, and more focusing on utility out of their motorcycle. So kind of back to the past a little bit. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think contractions can be good. Like I said, it weeds out the weaker of the herd that shouldn't have been there in the first place. It strengthens the ones that deserve to be there, and it means that they can all consolidate and get ready to move on into the future. So I'm not saying it's particularly negative, but we definitely don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell what's going to happen, but I do think it's going to be rough seas ahead. So that's the short version, and I know some of you have already fallen asleep, so you can wake back up now because it's the end of the video. So that's it for this episode of Adventure News. Let me know if you like the new background or not, or if you prefer the green screen. Now, if you're wondering where the viewer comments section has gone for these videos, I'm actually getting so many comments that I've made an entire series just addressing those, as it was taking up too much time in these videos. So next week I'll release the viewer comments video. It's called Bike Banter, so be sure to check that out if you're hoping for your question to be addressed. Now, I don't get to answer them all, but do know that I do read every single comment on this channel, so I will try and get to as many of them as I can. And as always, guys, I've been Solid, and I'll see you in the next video. Catch you later.